Because we're, okay, so we're closer.
It's the same thing.
All right.
So the challenge is that with the amount of riverfront area, 70,000 square feet or so of the lot is within the riverfront. So to meet DEP requirements, we need to stay less than 10% impact in that area. So this concept does that. It keeps the houses obviously towards the front of the property. One of the benefits of this type of development is that this area that's all mowed now, we can allow to grow back to be a natural wetland. As of right now, it's just, you know, yearly mowed and has been farmed and everything.
Can I interrupt just a minute?
Sure.
You said 10% of that area. What area are you talking about? That whole area or just?
10% of the riverfront area.
Which is not
Is that
shown
linear
on there.
feet?
Excuse me?
I-
Square feet. Square feet. There's 70,000 square feet of the lot is within the riverfront protection area, which is in the 200-foot
Is
buffer
the
zone.
bold dash
This is
line,
the-
is that the 200 foot?
That's a 200 foot.
riverfront?
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
it is.
All right.
Yes,
All
it
right.
is. That's a riverfront protection line.
I
Okay.
follow. Yeah, okay.
So we keep everything we can out of it.
It's okay.
The,
Nothing wrong with that.
the two houses basically are in that with the driveway and and we have a septic system. It's gonna be up over in this area, which would be out of it, and we'll need Board of Health approval for that. So, again, what we're here for is to just get your input, your thoughts, before we go too far down any path. We wanna just, you know, get a kind of sense on where you are with this.
Is that,
Could you turn that over again, just to
Sure.
get it better? And
So
where
we're
would it
putting-
be? Right there, okay.
Right in here.
All right.
This area in here.
is that subdivided from the lot where the house is?
Yes,
It was all one lot before?
yes,
You did this?
yes, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
We're very excited about the idea of the plan because in speaking with, well, it was actually Katrina was the town planner at the time, one of, you know, their priorities was to try and create a little more of a downtown and create some density there. And one of the things that she had said was the proximity of the house next door being closer to Church Street, they wanted to have, you know, have a property closer to the road, so it wouldn't look like a missing tooth as you went down the road. And this accomplishes that by what will be a very nice, you know, house towards the front of the property. And then the second unit would be towards the rear of the property, creating as much separation between the two as possible, but still creating, you know, a little bit of density in the area, so.
So it's a shared driveway off of Church Street, am I looking at this right?
No, there's two driveways, there's
Oh,
one
it's two
here
driveways, okay.
and one here. It will be a shared septic system.
Why don't you do a shared driveway?
Well, there is a shared driveway on this side for this house and a
Right.
shared driveway for that. And that's a very good question. Do you mind?
Yeah, no, go ahead. It seems
Well,
like that's a driveway too.
It is.
Okay.
Yep. This driveway is on the upper side of the property out of the 200-foot line. This driveway is in it. The reason why we don't have another garage on this section is we'd actually end up filling more area in the property in order to create the garage, we believe, than the driveway itself, than a driveway would towards this section. And the reason is because of the septic systems. The septic systems are pushing the houses out into the 200-foot line. We've got to the extent where we even, with the houses, we don't even have full basements so that we can get them closer to the septic. So there's a portion, for instance, of this house cut across the front where there's a slab on grade so we can push it closer to the septic. We're thinking about possibly doing special things with the septic so that it's skinnier to push it away from the wetlands as well. This house is designed, you can see the shaded area here, this is the area within the 200-foot mark, but this part of the house is not. So this is the garage, and the garage has a slab naturally, so again, we're trying to push this as much as we can out of the 200-foot barrier to the river. If we had a garage, the garage might need to be located, for instance, here. So we'd have a garage that would come up, it would fill in more of the wetlands here. We can't stay, we can't be a particular distance from this leaching field, which means the garage would need to be located back here, closer to the river. So again, what we're trying to do is push everything as far away from the river as we possibly can.
Why don't you bring the driveway down to the houses and do the garage under?
This is actually a garage under on this side. This is an uphill side here. Can you say that again? I want to make sure I understand the
I
question.
was thinking put a garage under just the house silhouette. I didn't realize that was part of the house silhouette and that,
Yeah, this is
that
the,
western piece.
yeah, this gets
Yeah,
us
it's
a
a
garage under on this side, yeah.
We're also trying to design it so that it matches the existing contours, so that when we're matching up to the existing contours that are there of the protected area, that they'll be all equal and not shedding water any more than what they currently would into that area. So it'd be a static situation.
That's a great point, Dave. So, although you can't quite see it from here, these darker lines here, of course, the proposed grading, but the lighter shaded lines are, of course, the existing grading. We're not changing the natural grade or the existing grade from the center of the houses back towards the wetlands at all. We're actually using the existing grade, and we've designed the houses to suit right into the existing grade itself, so that it all feels and is completely natural. And that's part of this garage under. It suits the natural grade. The house is set on top of the grade towards the hillside, and so doesn't this portion of this house. Excuse me, so isn't this house over here as well.
Yeah, if you're familiar with it, the lower part is the area closer to Central Street, and the grade rises towards the Todd property, towards the front, and there's actually a small retaining wall in the front
Right.
that we're going to,
And then it runs
just,
all the way down to the,
yeah, just we're gonna take out enough to get that upper driveway in. And the lower one, I think there's no, I don't think there's a retaining wall in the area where the lower driveway is there?
Yeah, there is.
There is? Okay.
The house on the right, is that a garage under also?
No, this is a garage up.
that's a garage
Slab.
under grade.
That'll be on grade.
Yes, it's a slab. So these are the septic systems, and the houses have to be, of course, a particular distance away from them. And in Rowley, as you know, the setback from the septic system to the property lines is somewhat strict, so that pushes the septic system away from the property line. And we literally have the houses set within an inch of the setback of the leaching field. And including, we have, for instance, the house on the left, we've taken out some portions of the cellar so that we can have the house a minimum distance, 10 feet to the septic, and including having cantilevers on the house, a few feet in bays. They look nice, so they look natural, they don't look forced, to the leaching field to push it as far away from the wetlands as we can, or the river.
And you've changed these designs of the houses quite a bit. You've been working quite a bit on those to make them fit, right?
We're trying to do two things. We're trying to make it fit naturally, thanks Eric, naturally into the grade, so it doesn't seem forced, and as well protects as much of the riverfront as possible. As well as, you know, we're gonna have to see the historic commission, so we can't simply have a box, place it as close to the street as we can, because,
Yeah, our plan is, if you're not familiar, Matt helped or did design the central area of Rowley there too. And we're gonna try and keep the architecture, not that it has anything to do with what we're talking about at this, but we are gonna try and maintain, you know, the theme of, like the Todd House and the central area. So it will fit within the area and look good too. It won't.
To what extent does the Historic District Commission get involved in the design of these homes, since it's new construction within the Historic District?
everything, right down to the molding that's on the facade,
So
because
you're-
it's in the historic district, yeah.
So you're somewhat limited in what you can do.
Sure. They like me though, and I like them.
I can see why.
Well, we think that that's gonna actually turn it into a positive, you know, if we can blend it together, I think it can only enhance it.
So our dilemma is that we need to have a leaching field, and it's tucked against the street as close as we can in the property line. That forces a house to be located on that side. We have to have a reserve area, of course, that's behind
And
it.
this is the reserve area right here.
And we've even got to the extent we have an L-shaped house that wraps around the curve of the leaching field to push it as far away as we can, outside of having a curved house, right, around the leaching field. So,
You're-
so
have you
we're
done
trying the
your
best we can with historic forms and architecture to wrap around the leaching field and the setbacks.
Done your perk test yet?
Oh, yes, yes,
It's all passed?
yes.
What kind of a septic system is it?
It's gonna be a standard system, probably a geoflow pipe system, which is pretty standard now. Infiltrator.
What covers that? Is there plastic shield over the top of that, or does?
No, there's fill, just fill.
Just plain fill.
Yeah, you have leaching sand around it, and then you have, you need different amounts of fill depending on what the traffic is over it. So this driveway area would have more fill over it to be able to withstand the traffic loads than would normally be if you're just putting a septic system out in the backyard of somebody's house.
So the driveway is partly or wholly over
Yeah.
part of the septic system?
This part of it goes over the septic system, yes.
And what we've done with the house is we're using the house as a particular way against that grading. It's lifting up somewhat for the leaching field so that it all feels natural, so that people don't drive down the street and see a leaching field popping out of the ground.
Yeah, and driving over a leach field nowadays is no, it's pretty standard. You see a lot in commercial properties, you know, they put the
Right.
septic system right under the parking lot because they have no room for it.
What's the percentage of impervious surface for that area? Seems like a lot.
For the whole lot?
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, excluding the wetlands area.
Excluding the riverfront.
Excluding the riverfront area, it is probably around 30 or 35%. But of the total lot, it's 86,000 square foot lot. I didn't actually calculate the impervious area here, but
Might be
I'm guessing-
12,000 square feet.
yeah, 12,000 square feet, you're 15% or so.
So can you take me back to the 10% that you mentioned before? You said there was 70,000 square feet within the riverfront.
Yes, this dark line,
Right, and
From
so
here-
that means you have 7,000 feet. You've limited the
Yeah.
disturbance to 7,000 feet? Is that?
in the riverfront area, yes.
It's the disturbance, so
Disturbance,
it's not
yes.
impervious surface?
It's
or-
disturbance,
Okay,
correct.
all right.
Yeah.
And that was one of the reasons why we had to try and meet existing grade in all those areas, because they couldn't be disturbed, so you had to make the houses and everything fit within around there.
It's a habit we have anyways to make it feel natural. It's a thing we do. Just can't help ourselves.
What's the reason for the turnouts in the long driveway there? Or is that what they are?
This-
Yeah.
This was originally going into a garage, right?
No, well,
We had to pull that back.
yep, so, their front door is actually here, and so, as you have to understand, right, the grade difference from here to here is essentially a story on the property. So, if we can't have a garage up here, then my thought was somebody would drive up here and park here and come home. Or they would pull in here into a garage, and then they'd come in this way.
Okay.
This is for guests, you could imagine, we don't want cars just sort of lined up on the driveway, of
No,
course.
that's fine.
Yeah,
Um,
and we're trying again just to, even in this area, we could have a bigger area for, you know, it's out of that 200-foot area, but I'm still trying to minimize that amount of pavement.
So are they gonna be single-family homes, or are they gonna be,
Yes.
so it'll be some kind of easement arrangements for the use of that driveway?
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine that this would, I don't want to speak for you, imagine this would be some sort of condo.
It would,
Well, the whole
document.
thing's a condominium.
Okay,
Yeah.
no,
So
that's
there'd
actually
be-
gonna be my
there'd be
next
detached,
question.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
single-family condominiums.
Yes, yeah.
How many bedrooms?
Oh, they're three each.
three each.
They're not big homes, but, you know, they're not 1,500 square foot homes either.
That goes to the size of your septic system, that's why I was
Yes.
asking.
Yeah, we're trying to base the house under the side, relative to the other sizes of the smaller Victorian-style homes that are in that particular area with things that people might have today, a garage or a porch or a deck, you know.
Yeah, and we honestly have a lot more work to do. I mean, we roughly size in the septic systems, but you can see we don't show septic tanks, and, you know, we haven't get to that level of detail. We wanted to get your input, you know, actually the planning board's input before we go, you know, go and try to finish this. So we're
Any comments you have, Brent,
Yeah,
at this early stage?
stormwater. Stormwater, this project looks like it has an excessive amount of impervious surface. And whether your impervious surface is out of the riverfront area or not is actually immaterial because of the topography or whatever, those surfaces are gonna be contributing stormwater towards the riverfront, as well as your driveways that are accessing Church Street are then gonna be shedding water down Church Street. And so you're actually going to have to treat the whole property, all the impervious surfaces, as if it's regulated under the stormwater regulations. Unless you're able to find an engineer that can convince us that water doesn't go downhill towards Oxpatcher Brook, that it in fact goes someplace else. But I'm more than happy to see you use all sorts of LID, rain gardens, or other methodologies for infiltration, or maybe even porous pavers or something to
Mitigate
show
that.
us how those impervious areas would not actually be contributing stormwater into the riverfront area that's in close proximity to it.
So my saying that this is exempt isn't gonna fly?
Absolutely not.
No.
No, you can talk to the guy
I had
across
to ask, I had to
the
ask. That's-
street with frontage on
So-
Main Street, and that didn't fly with him either.
Okay.
Number two, I hope you're going to give us the benefit of some professional input in regards to what's going to happen to those resource areas once mowing ceases out there. Because unless you're going to request from us some ability for long-term management strategy to maintain the open field or whatever, which we could possibly be very amenable to, all of a sudden shutting off the historic activity of managing the field there is going to allow that, those nasty two words that we're dealing with on another property, unless there's a planned
The two
succession.
words are
Invasive
invasive species.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Right.
unless you're going to present us with some kind of planned successional strategy for those bordering vegetated wetlands that are in a field condition at this point in time.
Yes.
Your proposal's going to be weak if it doesn't have something that addresses that, because we know that nature abhors a vacuum, and as soon as you stop the mowing out there, we're gonna get glossy buckthorn, we're gonna get all.
Sounds like a mowing program might be,
I don't
Well,
know,
and
it
we have-
might
read
be,
between the lines,
If
but
it-
getting directed.
if it can be professionally certified that there's an
Put it in the
appropriate
deed.
strategy of
And we have West,
field management.
we have West Environmental
Yep,
on
I know
board.
Mark.
Mark is very good, and he does a
Yes,
lot
he
of
is.
work with invasive species and with some
Well,
of the
no,
federal.
we don't want any work with invasive species.
Well,
What we
preventing
want
them.
to do is work with.
Preventing them, absolutely, understood. So we understand, we'll develop a plan and make sure that it addresses your
Let me
concerns.
introduce something else on the possibility. Why not just impose a no cut, no disturb in the state of, there's nothing in the wetland provisions that require us to maintain existing lawn or mowing stuff. That would.
Well, what my
That's
point
going
was,
to
Whatever
ensure
comes
that-
in, comes in.
That's gonna ensure that
yeah,
it's
but that's
invasive.
going to ensure, that is like presenting a buffet to invasive species.
So what?
Here, come here, because it's been a manipulated landscape ever since Raleigh was settled.
Well, we don't
And
know that.
it would be professionally not a good strategy for us to see this development move forward and just all of a sudden shut off the mowing there. We are going to cause a problem of imbalance in that community. Now, that doesn't mean that there can't be a planned strategy that doesn't involve mowing, but does possibly involve doing a little creative planting and stuff in there to sort of seed it with native plants, again, so that we don't just all of a sudden stop things and have whatever invasives are there all of a sudden just take over.
And that honestly was my idea to recommend to stop the mowing. I had thought that would be a good thing. I understand your concern about invasive species, but.
Well, could I get a little clarification for a minute? Because this whole part hasn't been mowed in a long time. This part was last mowed 1 year ago.
Right,
What makes it easier?
Right,
right,
but this part has never been, well, not in a long time been mowed.
right.
Okay. I
Right.
just wanted to make sure we were all talking.
We understand your
about the same.
concerns, and we'll,
Right, we're gonna be,
Come
that's
forward with
something
something
we're gonna
addressing
need
that.
you to talk about, is
Absolutely.
that part of the parcel. We're not just going to say, great, you're not messing with it,
right,
happy with it.
No,
We're-
absolutely.
It's gotta be managed, it's part of the parcel.
Yep.
I think that's Brent's point.
and that's why we're here, is to get this kind of, get this kind of
Because the
feedback.
condo owners are not gonna be happy if it all of a sudden just turns into like
No,
Understood.
some mess out there, multi-floor rows and whatever else. I mean, that's not gonna be their idea of a good viewscape across that stream valley, so.
I think most people would normally prefer that it be mowed and maintained to some degree, not like a lawn, but,
Hmm.
you know, to have it dealt with like in a hay area type of thing. We'll put it in the condo docs.
Pike has been mowed.
Condo dogs, absolutely. That's right, that's where it's gonna have to be, because it isn't gonna get done otherwise.
Yeah.
May never get done anyway, but, yeah.
Again, I think it's gonna, if I were looking at it, I'd look at it as a positive. They knew it was gonna be maintained and maintained correctly and
Right.
not
But again,
have.
like I said, professional input to make,
Yeah.
so that we can make
Okay.
rational decisions about what might be the appropriate effort going forward, even if it ends up being a diminishing type thing or something. A planned retreat, so to speak.
Can you elaborate a little bit on what is meant by a condo project? Seems to me you've got two single-family homes here, and are they each responsible for the roofs of each other and?
Yeah, condominium is just, it's a type of ownership, so the documents can be written anyway, but they will have those, they'll have an association. The association will be responsible for the structures, the roofs, they'll have a monthly fee, and then the important thing with the documents is that there'll be certain land here that will be, not deeded, but it'll be common area, exclusive use for this. There'll be areas here that will be identified that the person that lives here and owns this can use, like this driveway. This driveway will be a common area used by both of them. You know, this part of the driveway here would be exclusive to this unit. So it's a matter of divvying it up on how you anticipate the use.
So you're a two-party condominium, basically?
Yes, yes.
The problem is if they don't do that, then they have to divide the whole lot into 2 or 3. And if you divide it into 3, the question is who owns the third lot? And if you divide it into 2, the question is how do you divide it?
Yeah,
and it's
quite-
better for all of the common areas to be owned and be the responsibility of both owners.
Yes,
not
and
both
honestly,
parties.
this,
That
this
would not
parcel
be
can't be subdivided again, so you couldn't divide it 2 or 3 times, it just doesn't meet the zoning requirements.
Right. So it's a way around the zoning requirement, but it's not really getting around it. It's more like
No.
serving the same purpose.
Yes.
At least that's the way I've been looking at it.
If you've got the neighbor from hell, you're gonna have problems, but anyway.
But you are
It's not
anyway.
my
That
problem.
is the problem. That's the thing. You have the neighbor from hell. it's-
Let's look at this
No,
in a
it's
more
worse.
positive way. You may wind up with some of you guys in there.
That's right.
Jeez.
Exactly. Neighbors. All right, any other comments by commissioners? Brent, anything else you want to add?
Thank you
I
for
think
the opportunity to comment.
So I think your takeaway is management of the large open parcel is gonna be an issue for us, and stormwater is definitely gonna have to be addressed, stormwater management and adhering to those rules, so.
And thank you very much, and just so you have an idea, we hope to be in front of the planning board informally next month, so it'll be a few months, it'll be the winter before you see us back here again.
Okay.
We have a lot of
Yep.
work we have to do and
Right,
some thinking
and
stuff.
I
appreciate your input.
Yeah, we're not gonna comment now or in the future on the advisability of 2 parcels on, 2
Sure.
houses on that parcel.
Understood.
That's not our department, that's we're
Understood.
planning to address, but we'll,
One more question.
depending on what they say, we may change our position too.
Sure.
What's the grade of the long driveway? How does it slope?
It slopes this way. And then this is the high points in here, and then it slopes back this way.
And there's already been a problem with the development across the street with regard to road water runoff and running down Church Street, and it strikes me if there's a way to keep that flow onto the property, you'd be better off.
Yeah, we'll look at that, and I'll actually have a conversation, meeting with the DPW director and get his input on, you know, what it is he wants to see.
That's definitely all part of stormwater,
Yes,
so, yeah.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks a lot.
Am I up, or is there more than, is there somewhere in between? Okay, wasn't clear whether that was
You're next.
Turnpike or what.
Next on the agenda.
Brad, I don't know if you, did you get my email that was sent towards the end of the afternoon?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Would you like me to just sort of summarize what I've done since the last time?
Sure, that'd be great.
Okay.
Let me just, before you start, what do we have in front of us, Brent? Is this?
We have the latest revision of the conservation restriction provided by Mr. Santamana. After discussions with Judy Pickett, I have 2 emails from Judy to read, and
Okay, so,
we'll focus on discussion, and the document in front of you has most all the changes that I'm aware of, and according to Judy, we need to discuss the assignment.
okay, all right, so this represents the same draft you're speaking
I
of?
think so, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, it's
Got
what
it.
you emailed to me, but I didn't have the ability to, I ended up using a highlighter and manually
Oh, all right.
highlighting because, well, it came out with very small text, and
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
because of those comment
I don't know if that's an
things,
improvement, but that's just a.
Well, the highlighting is fine, Brent.
Okay.
Thank you for doing it.
Yeah, well, it
Sure,
kept the
it's
text a
all-
little larger, so I thought it'd be
Yeah.
easier for us
Okay.
around the table to read it.
All right, so, sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay. I mean, I think Brent basically did just summarize where we're at. I did have a chance to speak with Attorney Pickett, and you know, we had a very congenial discussion and basically agreed on everything except, I think, the issue around the assignment language. Just on that topic, kind of broadly, as far as I know, virtually all of our conservation restrictions include an assignment provision. So it is, for us, certainly the norm to have a provision like that in there.
This is on page 11
Right.
for any commissioners that wish to turn to that section of the CR.
Right, yeah,
for
just sort of
discussion.
setting the context. The reason for feeling that having an assignment provision is important has to do with our ability to, represent that this is indeed a perpetual document. It's intended to address the circumstance where, for whatever reason, 100 years from now, Greenbelt is no longer in operation and we need to find a home for these things. And absent an operable assignment clause, they would just sort of go into limbo. So it has to do with our being able to look our grantors in the eye and say, yeah, we're really going to take care of this thing in perpetuity, regardless of what happens to our specific organization. That said, we have no specific intentions of assigning this restriction or any other. This is really just a contingency mechanism that's in there. But it does relate to the perpetuity issue, which is significant.
Yeah. What's Judy's concern, as you understand it?
Couple of things. I mean, one, I think she was a little bit concerned about the unilateral nature of the language as originally drafted, which is a fair point. And then I think she had a concern relative to Article 97 and whether an assignment of the restriction would constitute a release or disposition of the restriction, which in theory would require an Article 97 process. That's not our interpretation of how Article 97 would work in this instance. In fact, it's sort of the opposite. The ability to assign the restriction enhances its perpetual nature, so we don't see it as something that would require Article 97 action. That said, I did take a piece of language from the state's model CR and drop it in here, which is basically to acknowledge that in the,
That's the last sentence.
that's the last sentence, which is if there is an Article 97 process required, we'll deal with that. So we basically did three things with the language here. One is to add the town's ability to approve a restriction, approve an assignee. We did add an unreasonableness test, so the town can't just arbitrarily say, no, we don't like your assignee, we're not gonna approve it, and in essence, the restriction could conceivably go away at that point in time. But to give the town some additional comfort about who a potential assignee might be, I added the concept that it has to be an entity that's has some experience and a track record essentially in holding restrictions, so that it's not just some entity that is set up for the specific purpose of holding a restriction, or is, in some sense sort of a fly-by-night operation. So that's the way we've tried to address Judy's concerns.
Do you have an email from her on this topic?
Yes. So she wrote to me on Columbus Day, that I spoke with Dave on Wednesday, and we agreed on most of the proposed changes, period. He told me that he had agreed at the commission meeting that he had no problem with the assignment of the CR subject to the commission's approval. He, Dave, has since changed his mind, and we agreed not to agree on that provision and in all the associated references to the assignment, period. I told him that I could not agree to the change allowing the grantee to assign the CR without the approval of the commission, and this would have to go back to the commission for their discussion, period. I have not yet received the further amended CR. But I'm taking from that this is a further amended CR, because
Correct.
you are saying that the town
Yeah,
can have some oversight
Yep.
in
Right.
regards to
Right.
assignment.
Exactly.
I don't have
So I
any.
think
Yeah.
this
Okay. It's probably-
addresses
yeah.
what her concern was, and
I don't have any problem with the language, which approval shall not be unreasonably withheld. I think that's gonna be
She didn't like
interpreted
that.
into it.
I would say she didn't like that language.
I sense that, but I think that if it went before a court, I guess that's where the remedy would be. I think any court would read that language into it anyway. I mean, you can't behave unreasonably.
right,
Right.
that is normally an underlying fundamental of most
Right.
decision-making processes.
Right, or, fraudulently, or in some kind of self-interest that is inconsistent with the purpose of the, I mean,
Right.
it takes in a lot of different things, but it's gonna be read into it whether it's there or not, so it really should be there.
Yeah.
That's the way I would feel about it.
What if we turned that phrase around and said that which approvals shall not be withheld except for reasonable cause? Sounds a little more positive, but
I've never seen it worded that way.
This is the way we always word these
Yeah, I think
things.
that's
this
just kind of
language,
this.
I find that language offensive myself, but
Well,
it,
I put it in a million
but
documents
if you put it
myself.
the other way around, I
What
don't
did you
have the
say
same
again? Say
problem.
it again.
That which approvals shall only be withheld for reasonable cause. Should amount to about the same thing. Maybe Judy might find that more better.
I guess it comes out the same, but since it comes out the same, I don't care.
But either way, I mean, I can live with this.
No. I agree with you, David, that this language is important to perpetuity.
Yeah.
Greenbelt exists, but who's to say that it will exist? And this assignment, this grant is supposed to exist forever,
Right.
perpetually,
Right.
so.
A couple of other things I might just point out quickly. There was a reference in here to the property being core habitat in the biomap too, which is erroneous, it's not, so that was a drafting error on my part. So that, I took that out of, the purposes section. I did add some language clarifying,
That was
Use
page
of-
3 where that got taken out of.
yeah, page 4, a little bit of language to clarify the access by the disabled using, motorized wheelchairs. We dropped in Brent's language about invasive species and things like that, and then,
Forest management,
yeah,
being able to be
Is that
conducted.
page 5, 5 to 6?
Yeah, 5 to 6.
and then there was some discussion about how to accommodate modifications required in connection with providing disabled access. And so I ended up just creating a new reserved right, numeral 10, that provides for
It's on
that.
page 7.
Page
Yep.
7,
Okay, that's new.
that's new.
Yeah, okay. That's probably a cleaner way to do it.
Yeah, and other than that, it was pretty much technical stuff and typos and drafting.
Let me throw out another question.
Yeah, I think
Why shouldn't there be a reciprocity or reciprocal clause in here indicating that the grantor has the right to assign to a subsequent municipal entity along with a similar kinds of restrictions? I mean, suppose Georgetown and Rowley got together and decided to be a common town, and suppose Merrimack Valley Planning Group, which seems to be increasing its power every time you turn around, becomes the city of Merrimack Valley or something, and all 11 towns become part of it. That's,
I mean, I think the language in here about successors and assigns probably covers that. I mean, that's the intent of that. So whoever runs the land, regardless of who it is stuck with the restriction. That's the.
Yeah, I think you're right, on page 12, 13. Deeds are on the premises in perpetuity shall be enforceable in perpetuity against the grantor and the grantor's successors entitled.
Yeah, and it references successors and assigns right in the first paragraph when it's setting up
Yeah, that's right too.
the grantor.
Should I be worried? Is there a guerrilla movement to reunite Raleigh? Take over Georgetown?
I don't think so,
Bradford?
However,
You could stop
smart
fighting,
that might be
you
from a
could
planning
stop
point
fighting
of
about
view.
the canon if you did that.
I don't,
Yeah,
yes,
Joe
in fact,
would
would
be
solve one
Joe
problem.
about
what you call jowling.
At least we wouldn't be arguing about the canon anymore.
So if this seems generally acceptable to the commission, my suggestion would be create a clean version, put together the application that goes to the Division of Conservation Services and see what comments Irene may come up with.
That's the next step, right? Yeah.
Can I
Well,
make
we would normally say this draft document is fine with us and refer it to the selectmen.
At this juncture?
Don't you think we want?
Yeah, I
we
mean,
usually
they're
want to
basically
keep that
gonna
first.
say, well, you guys looked at it and everything, and ask if town council looked at it, and they'd say yes, and they say fine.
Oh, okay.
But just as,
In the eventuality, however, that Irene comes up with some stuff we need to address,
oh, well, yeah, but, yeah, well, that,
wouldn't it make more sense to deal with that first and then go to the selectmen with the final what we,
well, I'm just parroting what we just did with Mass Audubon,
Did we do it in that order? I thought we went to
and.
Irene first and then to the selectmen, no? Okay, I mean,
Well, I
I
mean, we
defer
just,
to
we
you.
let the
I'm sure you
selectmen know where it was, I mean, we just, as a
Well, the
courtesy,
selectmen-
we just let,
Yeah,
let them know, being the chief administrator.
well, they meet every week, so
Yeah.
it doesn't delay things.
no,
Okay.
Now can I make a really, really, really tiny point?
Sorry to step on your point, because
No,
it should have come
no.
before all that.
There is an unclosed parentheses in the
no.
first paragraph. From everything I can see, and I've gone over it a lot of times, because those things just hit me.
oh, here and after
Here and
grantor.
after grantor,
Yeah, right.
blah, 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 and there's no place where that closes
Yeah,
up.
it should come
It should
right
be
after
after
grantor.
grantor.
Yeah.
Right.
And well, as long as we're on this subject, Why is there a blank after the word premises? What word would go in there?
That's just a formatting thing.
Okay, just
Mm.
checking.
Is it intended to
The
have-
email that I sent you that you haven't gotten yet also said on page 15 or 16, there's the old selectman
Oh, okay.
signature thing without any of the selectmen's names that later
Okay.
on is
All right, I'll just.
is corrected on
Yeah.
page 20.
Okay.
Block number? No, no. I was thinking maybe but, good catch, Sam.
All right, any other comments, questions, parentheses, periods,
Semicolons.
formatting? Speak up. We have many proofreaders here.
Right.
We all should be trying to do our best. Once this thing gets recorded, it is forever. Okay, so we will submit it to the selectmen.
Yeah. I'll make sure that that's the
That it
next,
gets on,
otherwise
yeah.
I'll just
Yep.
tell Dave.
Okay.
Fine.
And then, who sends it off to Irene, you or you? You.
We normally would,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
And,
So as soon as the selectmen have, which will be probably Monday.
Yeah, like I said, let me check and just make sure,
Yep.
but I think that's how we've done it. Just,
Okay.
When, as an aside, when is town meetings coming up, correct?
Special town meeting is 20, yeah, next week. The next town meeting is
May.
May.
Right, but the spec, I know there's a special.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'll get the package together and just when we get the green light, I
Yep.
can just fire
in,
it.
yeah, it'll probably take you that many days to do it anyway, because
Exactly.
it really won't take long to get that.
Well, just, correct
Yeah,
this baby.
Yep,
and
I'll clean it
Send
up
it to me,
and- yeah.
and by that time I'll know what I'm supposed to do with it, or
okay.
whatever, give you the green light, okay?
All right, super, sounds good.
Let me ask you a question,
Thank you very
Brad,
much.
are we gonna have to sign off on this tonight, assuming you vote?
No,
No, because it's still gotta go to D.
It has to go to the
or
state,
there,
yeah.
DCS,
TCS,
yeah.
yeah.
CCS, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Right.
All right,
It's not signable yet.
Thanks, Dave.
thank you all.
Okay, thank you,
Good
Dave.
night.
Really, the draft had a signed version, and this one didn't.
Yeah, and he has to fix that too, actually. All right, the next item, the 845 item, is administrative, so why don't we hold that since Mr. Sabatini and Mr. DeRosa are here. This is the 9 o'clock item, well, it's not actually, 9 o'clock on the agenda is status reports. The specific matter is continued enforcement order for land off Main Street, Lot A, map 26, parcel 26, Lot 1, Michael Sabatini restoration plan, and we have Mr. Sabatini and Mr. Michael DeRosa here. Welcome. All right. So, Mr. DeRosa, anything you want to say initially for the,
I know that this is the first hearing that, and for the record, Mike DeRosa, DeRosa Environmental, representing Mr. Sabatini. It's the first hearing I've been to on this
Right.
topic,
yes,
so I've been hearing sort of interpretations. I think what we want to do tonight is sort of come to an agreement over a possible solution where mitigation can be provided, but maybe not in the initially proposed way, so that the commission can feel that the incursion was satisfactorily addressed, and then talk about options that Mr. Sabatini has come up with that I think are good ones, to move forward and sort of get past this. I mean, the enforcement order was issued back in May, and we're still
right.
talking about it, so we need to, I think, and I'm sure the commission's of the same mind, to move on to something else. But I think, do you want to talk about your strategy? Mike has some great photos showing sort of befores and afters of work that he's been doing on some of the historic apple trees on the property, both the town property as well as the private property. And so I think, in talking with Mike before the meeting tonight, it seemed to make sense to me that this is some way that Mike's willing to give back to the town to remediate these historic trees that have significant value not only to the town but to the local ecology, that are really being inundated by poison ivy, Asiatic bittersweet, all the usual suspects. And he's done some beautiful work in restoring a couple of these trees already, just because that's the kind of guy Mike is. He wants to do the right thing. And so it would be a way to sort of restore those historic valued trees. And I think it would give benefit not only to the town, but to Mike, but also to the town and the people that use that land out there and walk those trails.
So where are these trees?
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Point of clarification, under the open meeting law, any presentation by the applicant must be done in a format and a manner that's submittal and can be incorporated and become part of the public record. Mr. Sabatini presented images at the last commission meeting, didn't leave those images or turn them over to the commission. And he apparently has got an electronic presentation device tonight, which is not going to allow incorporation or submittal into the public record at this point in time. I just wanted to raise that aspect of the.
Maybe we can deal with that, Mr. Sabatini, by, if you would commit yourself to presenting us in the next few days with printed copies of anything you're going to show us. Because I understood from what you just sort of turned to Mr. DeRosa and whispered that you didn't bring printed copies, you just brought, what do you have, an iPad or something like that?
You have some.
I have some, and I had some from, I brought some of the ones from the last meeting too.
Okay, so just keep that, that's a good point, and keep that in mind for us, is that we have to have the record here. We can't just see it, we have to incorporate it into our record. So an electronic presentation doesn't work for us in that respect. Okay. Now, my question was, where are these trees?
Do you want to explain where those are? Or show them?
Sure.
Is it easier to show?
Probably. This is the entry into the property. This is the dirt road that goes to the community gardens.
Do we have a, yeah, Brent, do you have a sketch that we can kind of follow here? Okay, so, see, pond is here, this is U, this, let's see, A is town property, pond is here, this is Sabatini property, right? Okay, so,
What I initially did was I actually took pictures all the way around the perimeter, going down here and up and down. Mike looked at all the pictures and he came up and said, maybe focus on all the ones in the area which everybody sees. So these are actually supposed to be apple trees. And these are apple trees here, and that's a big one. And so you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
And that's all town land here, correct?
Right. Yes.
Oh, except that's planned to be the affordable housing parcel, which is intended for sale.
Oh, really?
Yes.
yeah, that's always been part of the
Provision.
Brad Street, yeah, that's how the money was raised, so.
I see.
it's
Okay.
good, yeah.
Well, the sun. Well, I can do it.
But regardless, it's still
Regardless,
a benefit, so.
that gives you an idea of the trees that were here. This was an entire bittersweet and poison ivy canopy from one to the other, down and around. That's the tree I was working on in May. That's the one they just started. These trees are all about 150 years old and up. Apple trees. They haven't been spliced. And this one is loaded with apples now. You can see how much higher it got. That's the one I just started working on. These trees are right on the little tote road. On that dirt path, right here. I started working on this one, right there. That was that one, on the corner of your land. that's that one. That one's now loaded with apples, took me 2 years to get it to that size. This is the apple tree next to it, that's an apple tree. That's an apple tree. Those are the ones that are next to it. This is now a nice healthy tree. Still a little tall, gotta get it down height wise so people can actually reach them. But those are nice big apples, they're like that big.
So I think there's benefit there to the town and to the local ecology to have Mike offer that as mitigation and continued mitigation, including major trees going down the driveway, right?
Right. And if you come down, start going down the wet, you wanna call it the wetlands or the conservation land down this path, these are all these trees. This used to be all lined with maple trees, all the way over to the stone wall that's on the Todd Farm property wall. And on this side, this used to be all lined with trees. Those are the trees.
It's all Asiatic bittersweet.
It's just one massive canopy. Right here, the trees got so laden that it pulled them down. It's about in the middle, somewhere right about there. The vines pulled the trees right to the ground. So these trees are all lined up, mostly on this side though.
Where's your property? Your property ends right there, right?
I'm right up in here, start right in that corner.
Starts right there.
Right, that's sort of when the field begins, there's a stone wall.
And
right
this is
there.
wetland here too, right? So that would be good buffer zone mitigation as
Okay.
well.
This is Todd Farm, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's just orienting myself. Yeah.
Mhm.
This is where the flea market is.
Yes.
Right.
If I go at this end of the camera. This starts this side. Where are we? Where's the pond?
It's right there.
Yeah. I went down in here, and I just basically follow the edge and going up. So this is looking right down the line of the properties between me and you, me and the town. This is what's happening to the trees now.
So Mike's willing to
This is
take
the
on that.
That's the split of the town right here. That little line. So I mowed my side, and
Oh,
you
I see.
mow your side.
Yep.
Gives it a better look at it. And
So
see,
that's this line.
exactly.
Is that what
So you can see what happens, the trees are all dying. That's George Bradstreet's tree that she planted in 1958 or so. That's the one on the pond that I fixed, that still lives now.
you're saying? And where's that over?
That's the
Here.
subject
Yep.
of the.
That was that maple that was split that we had seen at the pond?
Yes.
Yeah.
And where's that on the phone, roughly?
It's,
No, on the sketch. If you could-
it's right at the intersection of me and
Okay.
you,
All right.
because that's your side. That's the split right there. The property line goes right into there. So it's like 6 feet over on your side.
So I think after talking to Mike, he's willing to take, are you willing to take all that on? The
Yes, that-
driveway, the apple trees, the perimeter trees to the town property and in the back?
Or start in a place that's more,
Yeah.
conducive to everybody else, so lean on them.
And I think that would be a significant benefit. Saving our canopy trees is
So
certainly
your,
has value.
so your suggestion tonight is that the restoration plan that you gave us is essentially you're gonna propose to withdraw it and do this in lieu of that. Is that my understanding? Okay. Several commissioners made a site visit. I know Mr. Sabatini is aware of at least one because he was there. But not all commissioners were there. So the commissioners who were there, do you have any thoughts based on your site visit that are new from the last meeting we had? You know that you've seen the property?
I went to one of the visits and the area around the pond that he had cleared, which is what started, I believe, started the whole thing, because I didn't get in on the board till after this was started. it seemed to me, with what knowledge I have of vegetation, that if he, I don't care what he replanted or anything, it's gonna be non-visible by this time next year, and it'll be just right, I mean, so it looks to me that if he wants to save some beautiful other trees, that might be more productive than trying to, put back some of that, growth that was right near the pond.
If I could just speak to that point for a minute, I too have concerns about that area growing back, and one of those large trees, I think there was another one as well, a different kind of a tree that you had pulled the invasive stuff out of. I'd hate to have that work go back instantly. What it was, Brent talked about on site of this year pulling the invasive roots out within the area that was cleared, and replanting with a mixture of things that I think was in your report that Brent estimates would cost somewhere around $400 rather than the amount that you were talking about, Mike. And then following up with pulling the invasives as they come up again next year, and I think the year after that. And I would be amenable to a modification of that and just do this year and next year. There's a huge Phragmites area that's encroaching on the area that was cleared, and there's also a cat o' nine-tail area that is filling up some of that area, and there's invasives on either side that undoubtedly will come back at some point. Brent felt the replanting should have a chance to reestablish themselves, and I'm sympathetic to that point of view, but I think I'd just do this year and next year in terms of a potential compromise along that area. I applaud Mike's interest in doing these other things, and he pointed out when we were on the property, to me anyway, the results he's had, and they make sense and seem like a good community give back. I'm not entirely clear that if, I don't know what the wetland situation is going down the driveway to the street, but if there is wetlands there and you propose to do some things to those trees along the lines that you're talking about, I would think you'd need to file a plan with us to get our approval of your work focus. But anyway, those are my thoughts on that.
Any other members who went on the site visit? Bob, I think you did.
Yeah, I did, I
What are your
went with
thoughts?
Brent,
Yeah.
individually, I wasn't in the group,
Okay.
but, I really reflect what Kurt's saying. I mean, he's talking about, the restoration that originally was proposed by Mr. Teresa, with the blueberry bushes and a few other species. It seems to me that it's going to be overrun, it's just a matter of time before they'll be overrun again, without some kind of management of the invasives down there. It's just prolific, and they're everywhere, in different forms. So it might be a losing battle, I don't know. I don't know how that's ever gonna work out. So I think what's being proposed here might be a more productive resolution. That's my opinion.
Judy, I think you went.
I pretty much share the losing battle point of view, and that nature takes its own course.
Can I? I did not go on an established tour. I have been down there. I was down there before, I've been down there after. As you know, I've got a plot, or I had a plot, right, adjoining all this. I'm, first of all, I fully expect that area will be taken over by invasives. Not a question in my mind that will happen, so. The other side of the coin is we had an example over on Route 1 where we required someone to reestablish appropriate ground cover, I'm not using the proper term, but, in an area that had been also covered by invasives, and also someone had cleared it out. I have and that wasn't on town land. This is on town land, and I have a problem with town land being involved, because it is to some, and I'm not terribly strict about this, but to some degree it is kind of a trespass. I think that the work that Mike's done, I've been there. I was there before you ever bought the place. I was involved in tearing down one of the couple of buildings there, garages and so on. I'm not at all saying the work that you've done is wrong or bad or anything like that. But I think we need to make sure that whatever we do recognizes the fact that this is town land, and it should be handled as an entity owning the land. So it's until we agree, since it's under our custody, until we agree to something being done, it shouldn't be done ahead of time. And in this case, we didn't agree to this ahead of time. I'm open, especially if Mr. DeRosa, I've seen you so many times, I think of you as Mike. If you feel that there are better things to do, I agree. I agree with that. But I think we need to all keep in mind the fact that it was town land, and that we have had other instances where we've required specific reconstruction. That's my 2 cents worth.
Can I ask you a question, Mr. DeRosa?
Sure.
Based on your original proposed restoration plan, do you think it's reasonably likely that if it were restored in accordance with your plan and invasives were managed for 1 year, that there would be a restoration or a reestablishment of natural species along there?
I think,
Or do you think, on the other hand, it would be overwhelmed by the...
I think there's a high likelihood it would be overwhelmed by the other invasives, because that whole area is surrounded by not only Asiatic bittersweet, but honeysuckle, buckthorn, Phragmites, all the usual suspects that we see, multiflora rose. It would be hard to keep them out of there, and it would take some superhuman effort to do that, to maintain it. So my feeling is to move this along. I think if we focus on the trees, which I think Mike is willing to do and has experience doing and is willing to do, we can really see some benefit and some significant landscape restoration there that everybody can enjoy. I mean, the paper birch he wants to save is completely almost inundated with Asiatic bittersweet. The maples along the driveway are significant. The apple trees are incredibly important, not only historically. Mike said that he mentioned that they weren't grafted. That's an important point for apples, because they're not a blend of different species. They're actually specimen trees, which is significant. And to keep those, maintain those, I think has value in and of itself.
Out of curiosity, do you know the species?
I do not. You may know more.
I don't. I did eat some last week, and they're amazing.
Okay.
There's a group of people that come in from Toronto that came down, and last couple of days of May and the first few days of June, and they're the ones that really started me into the importance of the trees and the fact that they weren't grafted.
I've got
Larry
some
Stidham-
apple books,
I think
Send
you
your
might,
way.
you might have to do a, basically a DNA test, a genetic test on it to figure out which breed it is. Because there are hundreds, especially
Because
the
there are
older
some,
ones.
you know, good antique varieties that are,
Right.
well, look how they survived. That tells you something.
I have some Macs that are about very small, but when you bite into them, they snap right in half. They're just amazing. I have yellow ones.
Really?
That one tree I was telling you about, just over on the town's property at the corner, those trees are like the size of cantaloupes. They're huge. They're probably 2 pounds each. They're massive. And they stay on the tree late into the year. They don't, they dropped a lot because of the storm last week. But they'll stay on the tree well into the end of November.
Deer
Whereas I had
like
some
those.
trees that have dropped them all already.
Well, there seems to be some sympathy to your proposal, but the problem I have with it procedurally is we don't have it in writing. And we don't know what you're actually proposing to do.
Yeah.
So I guess from a procedural point of view, what you're saying, Mr. DeRosa, is you are proposing to withdraw this restoration plan and propose a different, it's not exactly a restoration plan, it's more like a mitigation plan.
Well, yeah, it would be, I guess, it'd be a restoration plan, because those trees are gonna be lost if we don't do something.
But it's not restoring.
But it's not restoring
What
the
was
direct
done.
damage.
No,
that
it's
was
not
done.
restoring the direct damage.
So, well, whatever you call it though, it's a
Yeah.
plan that would need to, before I thought, I would feel like it was appropriate to vote on it, we'd need to see what it is you're proposing.
No, and something needs to be part of the record that, so
Right.
I can modify this, to include, the specific areas that you wanna do. We could do an aerial photograph and mark the specific trees that will be maintained. And then a protocol, which, we advocate for whole plant removal, so we'll be taking out, Asiatic bittersweet, the buckthorn, everything there, and then Mike will be in charge of some radius around the tree.
So, the wetlands would need to be delineated if there are wetlands along that road.
Yeah.
And also, I'd like to see delineated the proposed road into the affordable housing area, because if the road that is existing is part of that, I don't know, it looks like one of the trees is right in the middle of that road.
That's not a surveyed no.
Yeah, that's not,
Do
the
not go-
registration isn't perfect on that one.
No, but there's
Right.
there is a plot, there is a plan that shows the approximate area of that, and that should be, I don't know where that goes or whether it's on this or not, but,
Well, Brent's initial point is a concern, is that if that's affordable housing, those trees are not long for this world, most likely. So effort put into them is not effort that's gonna be very constructive. I don't know where that affordable housing project stands, and I don't know what the design of it's gonna be, I don't think anyone
stands
knows.
nowhere.
Stands
Yeah.
nowhere.
Oh, really?
Who knows?
But-
So it could be 10 years from now, it
Yeah,
could be 6
but
months.
we as a
from
town
now.
are committed to that.
Yeah. Okay.
That's a condition of the funding that acquired this property.
So it will happen.
It will, well, yeah, I mean, it will never be anything but affordable housing property, put
I
it that
see,
way.
I see.
Whether they ever build it, that's
Yeah.
not in our control. But it can't change status.
Would we have a say in the design of that so that
We as a commission?
we as a commission,
No.
so that
No.
the trees would be
No.
saved?
No.
No, it's not ours.
They
It's
just
not
go and
I don't think it's
bulldoze.
jurisdictional.
Start grafting them right now.
Yeah.
Uh,
Go ahead.
May I make some points for the commission's consideration?
Please.
First off, the reason we're here this evening, and the commission already voted and issued and ratified an enforcement order for violation of the Wetlands Protection Act of regulated wetland resource areas, both under the Wetlands Protection Act and under the town's Wetlands Protection Bylaw. The commission, in the 10 years that I've served them, has never before embarked on a policy of accepting some other project, call it enhancement or whatever, in a different geographic area than where the infraction or violation to the wetlands plant communities occurred. Under our bylaw, both BVW and the buffer zone to BVW is a resource area, and that what has been impacted around that freshwater pond. It is also town real estate, and the commission has the care and custody of that real estate. The commission has never before considered non-restoration of the impacted area. The commission has voted and accepted and seen successful restoration plantings, replication plantings in the face of communities that have an invasive species component. The commission has always appropriately, I thought, required monitoring and maintenance through 2 growing seasons that included suppression or appropriate actions to curb the invasives, because once a native plant community has been impacted, such as we saw in this case, wholesale removal, you create the most opportune growing conditions for invasive species, which is why Mr. DeRosa appropriately included a component of complete removal of the invasive species, the rootstock, from the impacted area. And the commission has accepted, in many cases, proposals such as this, where then native plant species are planted, and they're allowed and monitored and maintained in order that they can establish themselves. There were native plants in that area before. It was not all invasives. There are native plants right now there, struggling in the competition for sunlight against the invasive species that are also there. So I just want to make that statement, that normally the commission, and it seems appropriately so, has always sought restoration of the impacted plant community. And it doesn't seem unreasonable that with 2 growing seasons monitoring of the area, that any planting of native plant material as proposed, which, as Commissioner Turner pointed out, I priced it out from 2 different native plant suppliers, and it's only approximately $300 to $400 worth of native plants that would be need to be procured. Then, of course, the appropriate planting and stabilization of the area would need to occur. It has a reasonable chance of success, and of course, because the commission does have oversight of this area, if the commission wished me to continue giving attention to the area, as I plan to do anyway through trail work and stuff, we can certainly, on the long term, we can see, once the native plant community is successfully established there, that there will always be a native plant community as a component of that area. I can show you areas on Hunsley Hills that I've worked at in the parking lot area that have seen a gradual reduction. Initially, you would have said, just as you see on the access drive here, that they were totally overwhelmed by Asiatic bittersweet. You do not see that condition existing today, because I've been plugging away at it. So I just want to put that in for the commission's consideration.
Well, and I think those are all valid points. I would just say that the fact that the commission has never done it doesn't mean that we can't do it.
Right.
And the reason I asked Mr. DeRosa the question I asked, which is there a reasonable likelihood that the native plant community is going to survive there and not be overwhelmed by the invasives, is that seems to be the key question here. And you just made a statement that, Brent just made a statement that there's a reasonable likelihood that it will succeed and thrive, and Mr. DeRosa's statement was that it would take a superhuman effort for that to happen. I'm not a wetland scientist, so I can't make that judgment, but I think there's a question in the minds of at least some commissioners whether it will have a reasonable likelihood of success. I'm not sure we faced this exact type of a problem before. I would say that I agree completely with Brent and Sam that the fact that it's on town land is a real complication. I'm not sure how to deal with that.
Another point that I would make is that Mr. Sabatini, you've been before us before with regard to removing vegetation on other properties where, you should have come before the commission. And given that background, I think regardless of whether you knew or didn't know, and for all practical purposes, I'll assume you didn't know that was town property, it's irrelevant whether it was on your property or not. You should have realized there was wetlands there, and you should have come before us in terms of what you wanted to do before you did. And that doesn't weigh well with me. The other thing is that there's a diving board there that I think should be chainsawed off rather than try to remove that rock that's there. And it's an attractive nuisance in a way for people who want to go swimming and jumping off in there, but it shouldn't be there. And I don't know when it was put in there, but it should be taken out or off. And I don't think we want to put heavy machinery in there to remove it.
You mean to remove the rock that's
Right.
holding it? Yeah.
Right, so that the board can be removed.
Cut off the board.
Yep.
That's a good idea, I could have cypress
So how to proceed? I don't know what the sense of the commission is. It seems to me we could proceed by rejecting Mr. DeRosa's and Mr. Sabatini's current proposal, enforcing the order as written with the plan as withdrawn, although I suppose the plan has been withdrawn, so we don't have a plan. If that's my understanding from Mr. DeRosa, it's no longer a plan that he's advocating. Or we could, if there isn't sentiment for that on the board, we could ask Mr. DeRosa and Mr. Sabatini to submit a proposal along the lines they came here to discuss tonight. And in essence, it seems to me at that point we would have two choices, that plan or this plan. I don't have a sense of where the commission is at on this, so.
I think there's maybe a couple of ways of looking at this. One, we could put a hold or a stay on our enforcement order, and depending on where we ultimately wind up, so that we don't reject that and leave it on the table. And another thing I guess I want to say, Brent, and I've been very laudatory about all your efforts on Hunsley Hills and all of the other community service work you do on behalf of the town, the commission. I don't think, from a practical standpoint, that we should put you in the position of years of continuing to remove invasive species on this particular plot. Not that I would want to prevent you from doing it, but I don't think that should be part of a plan going forward. Anything can happen to anybody at any point in time, and I don't think we can or should rely on your continuing volunteer efforts along that line.
Well, I agree with that, and those efforts are volunteer efforts, and they need to stay that way. That's not part of your job description. It shouldn't be. I don't see that we can build that labor into any plan. It's not fair to you. It's not fair to you and the people who come after you. That's not what that job is about. Which is not to say that the volunteer efforts on your part aren't deeply appreciated. They are, but they're volunteer. So, any other comments? Anything else?
I think it would be a good idea to see another proposal along the lines of what is being described tonight by these gentlemen. At least we'll have something on paper to review.
Well, I don't think we can do anything with this
You can't
proposal
go
without
forward
that.
without
So,
that, yeah, so.
So I guess I would entertain a motion to do that, and the alternative motion would be to not do that, and instead to go forward with the enforcement action based on the current enforcement order. If we do that, then I don't know that we need to specifically do anything with the enforcement order. It's out there. We don't have to take any further action on it, but we aren't withdrawing it by not taking any further action. I would also say that unfortunately, we are really very much at the end of the planting season anyway. And if we don't get a hard frost in the next week or two, I think we'll get one in the next 3 or 4. In which case, planting now is just really right on, my sense is, it's really be on the edge of nonsense. You could very well plant this stuff now and lose it all in the first hard frost. And I'm not happy that that this matter, which started in May, is now going to go undealt with in that sense for a winter season, but it appears to be the position we're in. So do I have a motion along any of those lines from anyone?
I would like to see a second proposal, and see it in writing, with pictures of the trees that are savable, and see what would happen. I think if we started doing planting now with the weather and the rain and everything else, they might end up causing more damage than we would hopefully attempt to fix, as far as the pond goes.
There was a frost warning, 2 nights ago?
It doesn't preclude us from
Right.
keeping the existing order in place and enforcing it next springtime, which would take us another year or 2.
I don't know. Well, that's a motion. Is there a second for that motion?
Consistent with the discussion here, which goes beyond what strictly you just said, I would second the motion.
All right, the motion has been seconded. Are all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those against? Well, I certainly heard a majority, so I think that's what we'll do. Can you produce that within 3 weeks?
Yep, the next meeting is,
Wednesday.
November 12th, Wednesday the 12th, not Tuesday the 11th.
Wednesday, Wednesday. And you want it a week in advance, Brent, or?
Yes, please.
Yep, we can do that.
All right. See you then.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. And while the iPad is great pictures, bring paper next time if you could, please.
Well, send us
Send us what you-
what we presented
And-
this meeting and last meeting.
And you know, you can bring the iPad and you can show us things on it, but there have to be copies of what you're showing us that we can.
Trees.
Is a PDF copy?
How would you?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So just-
You know, those are fine, just something we can put into a paper file.
PDF.
Or you could just leave the iPad, and we can put that in the file.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Because those trees are definitely old,
Our arborists that
yeah,
They're incredibly
know
old.
exactly what to do.
yeah.
All right.
Now, it could be a very interesting resource to have some antique trees.
The other problem is, I meant to mention this, is to the extent they're on town land, that's another problem.
There's so many trees around years ago, and now they're all gone.
All right,
The affordable housing parcel is under the care and custody of the Board of Selectmen at this point.
right, it's not ours. It's never gonna, and it's never gonna be anything except affordable housing, it can't be. That's my understanding of how the money was raised, so.
But there is a rough segmentation of where the road should go somewhere.
Is there?
In the, you know,
That I didn't know.
I'm pretty sure there is, I've
So
seen it.
maybe-
Oh, there's there's
Yeah.
definitive subdivision plans.
Yeah.
No,
You'd
but-
have to,
yeah.
But not, that doesn't necessarily mean where the entryway and the driveways and the buildings are gonna go.
oh, it shows absolutely no
Right.
infrastructure improvements.
So
for
whether those
either-
trees can survive or not,
Yeah,
didn't know where, yeah, depends on the site, and how they design it.
Wonder if there's sugar maples.
Sugar maple?
Wonder.
Some of the maples, I don't know.
Fred, is that low along the driveway, or is that,
I'm sorry, is what?
is that low on either side of the driveway?
Yeah, well, it's bordering vegetated wetlands on the side towards Don Thurston's property.
It is, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
It's so thick that
It's
when,
mostly all fours, well, yeah, it's,
yeah,
It's a
yeah,
mess.
the driveway was allowed to get overgrown with bittersweet. I mean, the Bradstreets, you know, towards the end of their days, you know,
Yeah.
stewardship of the property did not really do anything.
yeah.
except to have the fields mowed, I think.
You get overwhelmed by the invasives, like a lot of people. All right, we have one more agenda item, which is 8:45 PM. A new request for certificate of compliance at 814 Haverhill Street, map 5, parcel lot 24. Cynthia Sincata, or Sincata, saying it right? Cynthia Sincata.
Continue this. 17 business to this moment. Need a motion for that?
Wasn't that part of the motion?
Yeah, it was.
Oh, I can take that, Billy. Thank you very much.
Couldn't get permission from the neighbor to plant trees. Sheesh.
Well, that's that section, it's owned by the corporation or something.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
I
wasn't
never
it
read-
connected to some developer or something?
Yeah, well,
Wasn't it
this-
Signs or something like that, or?
There's the
It's a 10 bucks for
old
road.
apartments in back,
Yes.
that I'm not sure, I think the condos now, but then that, but I think that's part of that land,
Yes, it is.
and they just,
They could-
I imagine they
Couldn't find
Couldn't
anybody to
figure out
get
who-
permission.
yeah.
No, they actually knew the firm, Williams and Sparagus, does work for whoever one of the principals is that is
Oh, yeah.
in the
Yeah,
Realty Trust or Land Trust that owns that. So, no, actually, they did know who to
Yeah,
talk to.
really?
They just never got an answer,
No,
according to them.
they never said you, no,
No,
they
they
never
received
said
a
yes.
response,
Yeah. Well, not a very big priority, I guess. All right.
So they planted the trees on their property. And I went back and tied ribbons on them, because as you can see in this photograph, they don't show up at all, but there's 1, 2, 3 actually in this picture.
what are they?
Red maples. About 6 feet tall. They're actually good size.
Oh, really?
Saplings, yeah.
So has
And we ask some people to
Yeah,
plant
I see.
things, they go right
I
out
see.
and they buy the native species and they put them in.
a little bit easier site. So has the septic been
Yep.
installed?
Yep, it's all in.
It's all in. They figured it out.
Yep.
They kinda
It's
had
just
to.
long,
Is it?
long, narrow. I
Leach
mean, it's
field.
like 50 feet long and 3 feet wide.
The leach field, you mean? Yeah. Yeah, that was an engineering
Yeah.
puzzle. And they relocated the fence and everything they're supposed to.
Actually, I don't know if they relocated much of anything.
Well, looks
To be
like
honest with you, there's
This
still,
is the
this
as-built?
is the as-built, and there's still, their sheds and stuff are still across the boundary line.
this is certainly still across, yeah, old house, yeah. Okay, well, not our problem. So this would be a partial certificate of compliance because there's one more growing season, right? Or,
Yeah, the overwintering period and then
Right.
till fall of next year, just to make sure that they get established and survive.
right, okay,
I mean, that's the, again, that's the typical,
right,
the typical strategy that we take to make sure that the plantings are successful.
It means they have to come back again to get the full certificate at some point, right?
Yeah, and next fall, if the trees are still alive, or if they, paid attention to them and replaced them with some others that have gotten established, they could come back and request a complete certificate.
That's why a lot of people wait that extra year to ask.
Well, yeah, but they're trying to sell it, so.
And we run into this sometimes anyway, when they do replacements with mounded systems at this time of year, and they can't really get the grass to germinate well. This is not atypical for us
No,
on a septic installation to
It's
have a
just-
partial that's waiting for
I don't
vegetation.
think they are
to
trying to
pass.
sell. I don't think that was part of it. I thought it was,
On the
They-
market.
They've
Is
got
it?
signs out
On
there.
market.
wow, all those encroaching buildings are gonna kind of be an issue, don't you think? I mean, it's
Well,
one thing to
only-
own them,
Only
but,
if the person buying asks, but.
well, they should get a plot plan.
The lawyer,
Yeah, I
the
mean,
lawyer
they're
for
really
one of the
supposed to
parties
get a
ought
plot
to pick
plan.
that up.
The bank ought to, that's what, it's the purpose of getting a plot plan is to make sure that buildings aren't encroaching on the neighbors, so. Cause it's a pool house too, it's not a nothing,
Barnum said.
and a shed and a ramp. Sheesh. Okay. Anyway, unless there's anything further, Brent, do I have a motion to issue a partial certificate of compliance with the 3 listed ongoing conditions? Contingent, the partial, let's see, and only the monitoring of the saplings is to continue until fall 2015 with replacement if needed. Is there a motion?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all against? Thank you. What else we got? Nothing else on the agenda? Anything else any other enforcement things out there? Don't give me that look. Yes, that's a yes. More of these kids. It's been hard working.
Don't always make it.
Anything else?
Well, I sent the commissioners round, I was invited to go on a site visit to 11 Ocean Avenue, which involved
Great.
actually
Interesting.
going down the Raleigh River a short distance and viewing docks and piers that were apparently, through an appellate decision of DEP, were ordered to be removed back in 1999, I believe. DEP is handling that. I was only invited to accompany them. The commission has no, other than just an interest in it, it's being handled by DEP.
Just for the record, the property in question at 11 Ocean Ave is owned by
David Levitt.
David Levitt, and it's from the aerial photo I saw, and I'm not sure if all the commissioners saw it. It's quite an elaborate dock system that he has there.
That's very long, yeah. So.
Yeah, must be several hundred feet of dock, all told.
Yeah.
Most of it parallel to the river. It goes out a little bit and then a long parallel dock, along with a long walkway over the tidal area, along with, as I understand it, a building that appears to be completely unpermitted.
Well, never came before the commission, so DEP is reviewing the status of that.
Right. But it's in all kinds of
approximately 12 by
jurisdictions.
24 that's in the riverfront, and it's probably
All
in
kinds of jurisdictions.
buffer zone to Salt Marsh and BBW.
ACDC probably.
Yeah, well, it may not be. According to the plans on file for the dock system, it appears that the ACEC only goes
Goes up a little.
partially up the coastal bank
Okay.
into the Salt Marsh. So
Plenty
it
of other
may-
jurisdictional,
Well, yeah, it's in a couple of regulated wetland resource areas.
so,
Understate.
but, in my understanding of our role in that is that we are on the sidelines on that it's a DEP matter at this point.
It was a matter of
Right.
history, and Judy confirm if what I'm saying, whether what I'm gonna say is accurate or not. We originally approved the walkway with certain conditions, and DEP overturned us and said that it needed to be removed. And I don't know whose jurisdiction it was in at that point, but none of the other stuff, with all the wharves and things came before us. So, you know, and it
That's
should
the
be.
expansion. Yeah.
I assume when someone puts docks in the river, that should, something that should come before us or not, because this isn't the only place where docks have been put in the rivers. that
Right, but there was an
haven't come before us.
There was an amnesty program for properties that had existing or previous docks and piers, somewhere between 1993 and 1996. Anything new should come before the commission, but it's actually not wholly the commission's authority. You need a Chapter 91
Right.
waterways permit for any docked piers or floats on tidelands of the Commonwealth, I believe, or the waterways. This actually started off, according to the documentation in the commission's record, is that apparently the property owner constructed this without seeking any permit from the commission. It was issued an enforcement order by the commission. And the commission did require the submittal of a notice of intent application and did, through the process, issue an order of conditions. It's not clear as to whether the commission was aware that one also needed a Chapter 91 license. And anything new on private property cannot be permitted in an ACEC if the ACEC does not have a management plan that specifically addresses docks and piers, as well as that, my understanding is it would have to be a regional management plan. It would not be just specific to Raleigh, because Raleigh is only one of a multitude of communities that have acreage or whose boundaries extend into the Great Marsh ACEC. So that was the reason why the Chapter 91 folks could not issue an approval for that piers, docks, and floats, because it's in the ACEC, and they requested some type of evidence of pre-existing structures. They, I was showing Judy a document I found in the file which even showed that they consulted aerial photos trying to assist the property owners and see if there was some sort of pre-existing float, dock, or pier, which apparently the record's silent on it. Just I did find that they had specifically looked for them and asked the property owner if they had any record of it.
Who's supposed to put together this regional ACEC plan?
There was the start of a preliminary effort already instigated by the town of Ipswich, which I participated in with the commission's approval for a while, investigating that. It would appear to have to be a cooperative effort of all the towns that are within the ACEC.
Including Essex and Gloucester and Rockport and
I believe so.
Newbury and
Newbury
Salisbury.
and- Probably not Salisbury.
Good luck on all that.
Well, there's probably about 1,000 docks in all those towns added together, so there would be a constituency for getting it done. But,
No, yeah, Ipswich had apparently, the reason Ipswich broached or initiated the effort into looking at it was because they have significant private property ownership that apparently was interested in seeking proper pathway of permitting for private docks and piers.
so So this letter,
Right now doesn't exist.
which Judy just gave me, 1999 from,
Yeah, I
what they
copied,
called them,
yeah, I copied that out of the
Um,
file.
DEP, it's called the same. If you can document there's a previously existing wooden walkway, gangway, and floats, you may obtain a simplified license for the structures, but they never documented it. And then for reasons that are completely opaque, it never came out. It wasn't permitted, he was told to get rid of it. It's still there, and he expanded it, which is how it came to the attention of the harbor master, which is how it came to the attention of Brent, which is how it came to the
And the
attention of
selectmen's
DEP.
office.
And the selectmen's
DEP.
office, right. And eventually, if you're gonna keep expanding your dockage, somebody's going to notice. So, okay. One other update, if you got one, was the Blair Blair zoning board hearing this week?
Oh, yeah, last Thursday.
Tuesday or Thursday or something?
Thursday, yeah.
A week ago.
They're having discussions in regards to, it appears, what I gathered from watching the video of the meeting is that the zoning board of appeals has the ability to issue limitations or requirements on conducting of a business. And so they asked the applicant's attorney to submit to them draft consideration of what might be reasonable limitations on the conduct of business on that property.
Okay. So, this is for the people who've forgotten, Blair is that large, large enforcement area off of Haverhill Street, what's the name of that road?
Redgate Road?
Redgate Road, the paper
No,
road.
Red Pine. Red Pine Way, it was
Red
already
Pine
called.
Way, not Redgate Road, that's on the other
Yeah,
side of town.
yeah.
No, Redgate Road's on the other side
That's
of
the
town.
right.
Totally the other side of
Yeah,
town.
nice,
Yeah, that's right. No, Red Pine Way, which is a paper road, really.
Well, it's a common drive, it
But it's-
exists as
it's
a
really
common
just a common
driveway,
driveway,
yeah,
yeah.
it crosses Muddy Creek, or
Right.
Muddy Brook, excuse me. Muddy
And
Brook.
this was this very large violation that
Well,
DEP
they have an
took
administrative consent order
Right.
at DEP.
Right.
I
So,
haven't heard what the status
The
is.
gentleman there is attempting to obtain a zoning variance to operate some degree of business out of the place.
Excavating
That's in
the
response
septic
to
system.
the town building inspector putting a cease and desist on.
That's right,
As, saying that there is a business being run there.
right. Based on Mr. Blair's admission that there was a business being run there as part of the consent order. So, again, I don't think we need to do or expected to do anything with regard to that.
No, we only,
We sent a
I only
letter.
provided
So-
comments in regards to a couple factual things on the,
Right, you and I talked about that,
Right.
and just to clarify what the plan did and didn't show, and. All right, anything else?
the communication, which I think I distributed to everybody about the state's response to the open space recreational plan, where they offered conditional approval, but pointed out a lot more things than they ever divulged in a direct conversation that I had with them in regards to information they wish to have updated. Guess I have to approach the selectmen on that. I'm not really sure where to go with that.
My
Definitely would
is-
need more resources and again, more than likely the efforts of a consultant in order to meet the technical requirements for
That's what I
data
thought
that
you were
they're
getting
asking
at,
for.
yeah.
Yeah.
My recommendation would to go forward, with that and request permission to hire that woman again and to put a request before the Community Preservation Act Committee for the funds to do that. The selectmen don't have any available, which they probably don't. Well, they may, since
Yeah.
we're in a new fiscal year, but and that would get it in the hands of the consultant and with probably reasonably minimal help, she can be steered to fill in the blanks and add the additional information that's needed. And relieve you of most of the burden of that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Because I don't think you have the.
Well, I think I've pretty much gotten to, well,
Yeah.
again, I will admit that some of the stuff that was in that letter was not my understanding of what was imparted to me originally in regards to where certain attention had to be given. So there is, maybe there is a possibility that there were some things I could have answered and responded to. But yeah, it was getting into more nitty-gritty and data details about population and employment and some other things.
You did an over-the-top job in working on that in the first place.
Right, but I think you're at the end of your resource on that. So that's why we
I'm at
have
the
that.
upper reach of my limitations
Yeah.
on being able to contribute, how's that?
That sounds perfect. Plus, we already have this consultant that is familiar with it, so we
Yeah.
just get her back on board. I forget her name, but I'm sure you know.
Nellie Aikenhead.
No, that's right. Aiken.
Yeah, she actually did respond because I copied her.
What did she say?
She said she'd be happy and willing if her assistance was requested to work on it. Yeah.
Seems to me your fee was pretty reasonable.
All right, anything else? All right, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second,
I figured everybody jump. I second it.
all in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Doug, could I hitch a ride with you?
Sure.